This man was on his way to drag his own father to court, seeking his execution. When youth and teenagers realized the traditions and morals restraining them were relative, they began to rebel blindly. They rejected everything without any deep thought.
But how can evil possibly come from ignorance?
When I heard this, I was utterly stunned. I thought to myself, how can I be the wisest? I, who knows nothing at all.
Damn, that's so deep. But then you told them you weren't afraid of death.
Asked Meletus, if I am the one corrupting the youth, who is it that actually benefits them?
Wait, you asked for free meals after they found you guilty?
We witnessed the final moments of my life just before I drank the poison.
Let's welcome our great guest, Socrates, the father of philosophy. Welcome.
Well, hello, and thank you for having me today.
In one of your dialogues, you described yourself as a midwife and a son of a midwife. What exactly did you mean by that?
My mother was a midwife. Her profession was helping people bring their children into the world. I, too, am a midwife. But my craft is helping people give birth to their thoughts. And I say that just as the process of birth is accompanied by intense pain, my way of birthing ideas is also accompanied by deep discomfort. Just as birth is a difficult and painful process that results in life, my method of extracting ideas brings about a similar irritation, much like labor itself. This method of mine is called elenchus, a Greek word that means refutation or cross-examination. Whenever I saw someone going about their day content and satisfied, believing in their heart that they possessed the truth and knew everything, I would approach them with a pure heart and sincere intentions. I truly wanted to learn from them. I wasn't there just to be a nuisance. So I would begin a dialogue, asking one question that leads to another. This is the elenchus. I would listen to their answers with focus, and if I found that their words didn't add up or weren't convincing, I would refute them and point out the error. Not to win the argument, but because the truth is more important than either of us. And do you know what happens in the end? In most cases, neither I nor they reach the absolute truth. But we emerge with a much greater treasure. We finally realize that we do not know. Instead of living in the illusion of knowledge, we become aware of our own ignorance. And that, my friend, is the first step on the path to true wisdom.
People say you are the wisest man in Greece, yet you constantly claim and say, I know nothing. Don't you think that's a puzzling riddle? How can wisdom possibly come from ignorance?
My questions were never meant to humiliate anyone. Their purpose wasn't just to expose the false knowledge that people often hold, but rather to search for a wisdom that might be hidden deep inside you. Wisdom you might not even know exists. We just need to keep searching and asking until we find it. When I asked about something, I never settled for the first answer one received. It's as if, in my journey to extract this wisdom, I am helping you test yourselves to test how logical your beliefs truly are. Either we reach a genuine truth, or we discover that these beliefs are hollow and that the claim isn't as strong as we thought. In both cases, we walk away from the dialogue as winners. One day, I met a man named Euthyphro. This man was on his way to drag his own father to court, seeking his execution.
His dad? Why?
He said it was because his father had indirectly caused the death of one of their servants. Honestly, I was amazed by his confidence and his apparent piety. I thought to myself, this man surely possesses divine knowledge of holiness. I must go and learn from him. I approached him and with the utmost politeness said, Euthyphro, I've heard that you are a pious man who truly understands what is holy. Tell me then, what is piety? He replied with total confidence, Piety, Socrates, is punishing the wrongdoer, even if he is your own father. Exactly as I'm doing right now. I smiled and said, That's a lovely and excellent point. But my dear friend, I am asking for the definition of piety. I didn't ask for an example of it from your personal life. He thought for a moment and said, Fine. Piety is doing the things that the gods love. I replied, But Euthyphro, you know that the Greek gods rarely agree on anything. Each has their own opinion. What one god sees as pious, another might see as a sin. So, can the same act be both pious and sinful at the same time? At this point, Euthyphro started getting annoyed. He told me, You're right, Professor Socrates. All right. Piety consists of the acts that all the gods love. I said, Excellent. But pay close attention to this question. Is an act pious because the gods love it, or do the gods love it because it is in itself pious? In other words, does their love create piety, or does piety exist and have value regardless of their love? Euthyphro replied, looking confused. Perhaps the gods love these acts because they are inherently pious. I said, Perfect. And if they are pious in themselves, then we still need to understand what makes them pious in the first place, independent of the gods, right? At this point, Euthyphro had had enough. He snapped at me. The good news is that you're right, but the bad news is that I'm fed up with you and everyone who knows you. Please just go away and let me execute my father in peace. I am practicing piety right now. We don't have to know what it means. Just let me do it. This, my dear, is the Socratic Method. I compared myself to a midwife in this process. I draw people in with my questions, birthing one idea after another. In doing so, I would strip away the mask of their ignorance, and that is something people despise. One of them might say to you, Expose me if you must, but don't you dare expose the flaws in my logic. The truth is, my dear, just as Euthyphro grew tired of me, many others did too. As a result of my constant pestering with questions, a grave accusation was leveled against me. They accused me, my dear, of being a charlatan and an infidel who denies the gods of Athens. They claimed I was calling for the worship of new gods and that I was corrupting the minds of the youth. And so began, my dear, the most significant event of my entire life, the trial of Socrates.
They also call you an infidel who denies the gods of Athens. Are you actually against religion?
I'm against the ignorant understanding of religion practiced by people like Euthyphro. People used to accuse me of many things, saying my questions were nothing but sophistry. That word comes from the sophists, a class of teachers who took money to teach people the art of debate. They taught the public how to win arguments whether they were right or wrong, much like a lawyer using verbal trickery. This is actually the root of the word sophistication, which we use today to describe complex or intricate things. I never spoke about the topics the sophists did, nor did I ever take money from people. They held a very dangerous idea, that knowledge and morality are relative, that we can never be certain of anything.
What is so dangerous about the idea of relativism?
Look, when you tell a mature, grounded person that knowledge and morality are relative, it should make them humble. Knowing that your beliefs aren't absolute makes you think 1,000 times before causing trouble with your family or society. But unfortunately, what happened in Athens and what happens throughout history is that when youth and teenagers realized the traditions and morals restraining them were relative, they began to rebel blindly. They rejected everything without any deep thought, regardless of what was good or bad in those traditions. This caused massive moral chaos in the city, and this chaos was the spark for the most important aspect of my philosophy.
How so?
After relativism spread, I decided to fix the issue myself.
And how would you fix it by yourself?
I set out to create a complete moral system based on rational evidence. I wanted morality to stand on philosophy rather than needing a supernatural force to support it, thereby ending the moral chaos. This was the literal definition of easier said than done, because, as simple as it sounds, it represents one of the greatest challenges humanity has ever faced.
Yeah, and how were you planning to solve this problem?
As you know, I considered knowledge to be the foundation of all virtue, and ignorance to be the root of all evil. This wasn't just a slogan. It was a profound and complex idea upon which I built my entire moral philosophy.
But how can evil possibly come from ignorance?
When I say that all evil stems from ignorance, I mean that every wicked or harmful act committed by people is actually a result of their lack of knowledge of what is truly good. No one chooses evil knowing it is evil. They do it because they believe it will bring them some benefit, and that is the ultimate form of ignorance. Likewise, all good deeds are the result of knowledge and wisdom. Whoever truly understands the good cannot possibly choose anything else. This is why I have always believed that spreading knowledge and raising awareness is the most vital way to support morality. If we mend the mind with knowledge, the actions will follow.
Wait, so you're saying that a thief, a murderer, or a corrupt official doesn't know their actions are wrong while they commit them? They surely do, yet they keep doing them. Where's the influence of knowledge here?
This is where my philosophy takes you a bit deeper. I tell you that the knowledge held by the thief or the murderer is incomplete and superficial. It is not true knowledge. This might sound like it makes no sense, but look at it this way. As a human, if you live an ethical life without stealing or oppressing anyone, you live a happy and fulfilling life. But if you become an oppressor and harm people, you expose yourself to guilt and a spiritual unrest that poisons your happiness, even if you get the money or the power you desired. If the thief, the killer, or the corrupt actually knew that their actions would lead them to misery, they wouldn't do them, because no human being wants to be miserable. Therefore, their knowledge is not true. If they possessed genuine knowledge, they would have avoided these acts and chosen to be moral people.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I believe that the more a person adheres to their ethics and principles they believe in, the greater their happiness and satisfaction with themselves and their lives. But anyway, your philosophy regarding ethics is clear and direct. But what about your views on other aspects of life?
In other areas of life, my approach to knowledge was defined by deep skepticism and relativity. For instance, when my students would get lost in debates about the afterlife, the gods, or supernatural forces, I would say to them, "Have you truly understood human life and its practical struggles yet, that you feel ready to discuss the mysteries of the heavens?" Similarly, when they asked me about the best way to worship the gods, my answer was always, "According to the law of your land." By that, I meant that everyone should respect their local deities and traditions without over-philosophizing it. Notice the level of skepticism and intellectual humility I maintain toward these subjects.
Yeah, I think that's truly beautiful. But what next? Do you have a philosophical views in other fields as well?
I considered knowledge to be the most vital foundation for building a successful political system, exactly as it is for ethics. If you wanted someone to build you a house, you would certainly choose someone with knowledge and experience in the field. Likewise, if you needed someone to treat your illness or plant your garden, you would choose those who possess the expertise. But when it comes to choosing a ruler or a military leader, we rely on elections or even by drawing lots. In my view, this is fundamentally wrong. That is why I was against the democratic system of government. I believe the best system is an aristocracy, where an elite group possessing true knowledge and wisdom is the one that leads the rest.
Socrates, you have captured the attention of all of history with your personality. You managed to influence minds that become the giants of a Greek civilization, names like Plato and Xenophon, and others saw you as their ultimate role model. How did you build an empire of minds when you had no formal school, never wrote a single book, and never have been claimed to be a teacher?
Look, my friend, I didn't influence those around me through my philosophy and words alone. In truth, my ethics and my way of life had the greatest impact. It reached a point where some of my students founded philosophies that changed history, inspired solely by my character. I lived a very simple life. I didn't care for money or what it could buy. I wore only one robe throughout the entire year, never changing it until it was torn. And I didn't even wear shoes while walking through the markets of Athens. Whenever I saw the vast amount of goods displayed for sale, I would smile and say to myself, how many things there are that I do not need. I truly despised the buying disease that afflicted the wealthy of Athens.
Oh, thank God you're not living in this era. We buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like, as Tyrell Dyer said.
What a funny and painful irony. You've placed your happiness in the hands of the other, seeking the admiration of someone who means nothing to you. You've replaced truth with performance. In my time, I told the people of Athens, the happiness of the soul lies in contentment, not in the accumulation of silver vessels. But it seems that in your era, you've turned consumption into your new religion. But let's get back to how my ideas influenced other philosophies. The simplicity I practiced in my life deeply moved my student Antisthenes. However, the truth is, he took it to a completely different territory and extreme that birthed what you now call cynicism. Briefly, this philosophy claims that the more you're attached to material things, the more your value as a human diminishes. Therefore, he believed one should abandon everything and live a life similar to that of a primitive human in the wild. Now, you and I might agree that this is an extreme philosophy that goes too far. I practice detachment to liberate myself from the control of things and to clear my mind for thinking, not to wage war against life itself. There is a huge difference between owning things without letting them own you, and throwing everything away to live as if you were in the Stone Age.
So did you actually enjoy life, or was it all just asceticism and simplicity?
Despite my humility and simple lifestyle, I wasn't a saint depriving myself of life's pleasures. On the contrary, I enjoyed them and was never ashamed of it. I was married twice. I had female companions in my life, including Aspasia, the renowned thinker and poet, and I was no stranger to the social gatherings, drinking, and pleasures common in our Greek civilization. But mark my words, I approached these pleasures with extreme caution. I always sought the perfect balance between them, my intellectual life and my health. The point wasn't the pleasure itself, but ensuring I didn't become a slave to it. I didn't deny myself. I simply remained the master of my desires. This side of my life is what influenced my student, Aristippus. But he took the idea to another level, claiming that the ultimate goal of human life is to achieve pleasure and eliminate pain, and that everyone should strike a balance to gain the most pleasure with the least amount of suffering. This philosophy eventually evolved into Epicureanism, which spread throughout the ancient world and whose traces still exist in your modern time.
So now we have two philosophies influenced by you and your ideas.
But there is one even more important than those two: Stoicism.
Stoicism? How did you get involved with that? Stoicism was founded by Zeno, who wasn't your student and had no direct connection to you.
That is true. Even if I wasn't there to see it, I am certain that one of the main reasons Zeno developed Stoic philosophy was my life story, which he read and was deeply moved by. Even Stoicism has my fingerprint on it. It's truly difficult to measure the full extent of my influence on history, and it becomes even more impressive when you realize that Plato himself, whom you consider one of history's greatest philosophers, was my student and learned so much from me. Throughout my intellectual journey, I was a nuisance to many people in different ways. My rounds in the marketplace, where questioned and debated, exposed many frauds and embarrassed them in front of others. My views against democracy annoyed the Democrats, who were the majority. The way I awakened the youth and made them think annoyed many elders who saw it as corrupting the youth. Even my skeptical views on Greek religion annoyed the devout, who labeled me an infidel. So, while a large part of the people loved me, just as many, if not more, hated me.
And I think that was the real reason behind your trial and the execution sentence.
Yes, false accusations with no evidence and no logic.
But how did you defend yourself against these false charges?
Before I begin, you must understand how trials in Athens worked back then. In the year 399 BC, a random lottery was held to choose 501 men from the citizens of Athens. They had to be over 30 years old and have no criminal record. These men were the jurors for the trial. In that era, when a legal case was filed, the accuser and the defendant would appear before this group of citizens. These jurors would listen to both sides, evaluate their arguments, and finally decide if the person was guilty or not.
But why such a massive number of people?
The reason for such a large number was to ensure the group was representative of the people and to avoid any suspicion of bribery. It is extremely difficult to bribe 500 people at once. As for the number being exactly 501, it's because the voting was based on a majority rule. The group had to be an odd number to prevent any possibility of a tie in the final decision.
Okay, so now we want to know everything about the most famous trial in history.
When I finally decided to respond to these charges that preach of new gods and corrupt the youth of Athens, turned to my accusers and addressed them with my usual annoying method. I asked Meletus, if I am the one corrupting the youth, who is it that actually benefits them? Meletus replied, the laws, which protect everyone. I said, I mean, which human being benefits them? He said, the people who know the laws and apply them, like all these jurors here. I asked him again, so you're saying almost every citizen in Athens benefits the youth, and I am the only one who corrupts them? He replied nervously, yes, exactly. What are you getting at? I said, well, let's use an example suited to your level of intelligence. Horses, for instance. Does it make sense that everyone benefits horses while only one person harms them? Isn't it common knowledge that only one person improves horses, and that is their trainer? If so, Miletus, the youth of Athens are incredibly lucky. Everyone helps them except for me, the lone villain. It's all so simple and solved, isn't it? I pushed him further. Do you think it's better for me to live among good people or among those with rotten morals? He said, among good people, I said. Then how could I possibly corrupt the youth on purpose while I live among them? If they became depraved, they would eventually harm me too. Why would I intentionally invite my own ruin? Then I asked, you say I am an atheist and don't believe in the gods of Athens? He said, yes, you don't worship the sun and moon like we do. You say the sun is a stone and the moon is just earth. I told him, hold on. The one who said they were ordinary physical bodies was Anaxagoras, not me. Every juror here knows that. By attributing his words to me, you are mocking the jurors themselves and insulting their intelligence.
Now, guys, you should know that not every juror actually knew it was Anaxagoras who said those things. But Socrates was intentionally embarrassing the accusers. He knew they would be too afraid to admit their ignorance. That is like if I catch you off guard today by saying, as we all know, the capital of America is New York. You might say, yeah, of course, because you're too embarrassed to say, I don't know, even though the right answer is Washington.
I said to Miletus, you call me a charlatan who uses divine spiritual powers, yet you say I am an atheist. How is that possible? Either the gods are helping me or they are against me, but either way, they must exist for me to use their power. After dismantled their logic, I turned to everyone present and said, I am not afraid that my words might lead to my death. I compared myself to Achilles at Troy, who was brave enough to kill Hector, even though he knew the price would be his own life. While they call me an infidel, I consider my questioning a command from the God's mission to judge and awaken the people.
And how exactly did the gods claim you were the wisest of all men?
Let me tell you the story. It all started when my friend Cherophona, who deeply admired my wisdom, decided to go to the Temple of Delphi. He asked the oracle a direct question. Is there anyone wiser than Socrates? The oracle's answer was a single word, no. When I heard this, I was utterly stunned. I thought to myself, how can I be the wisest? I, who knows nothing at all. So I decided to prove the oracle wrong, not out of defiance, but to understand her meaning. I told myself I would find someone who appeared wise, and if they truly possessed knowledge, then the oracle would be proven mistaken. So my journey began. I went to the so-called wise men, the politicians, the poets, the craftsmen, and I reached a conclusion that was both simple and terrifying. It was simple because I found that none of them possessed the wisdom they claimed to have. And it was terrifying because not a single one of them would admit their ignorance. They all believed they knew everything, when in fact they knew nothing. That is why I stood before the court and said, the only justification for the oracle's claim is that I am the only one who admits his own ignorance.
Damn, that's so deep. But then you told them you weren't afraid of death.
I told them I am not afraid of death because I do not know what happens after we die. It is the height of ignorance to fear something you do not know. I told the jurors that if my life depended on giving up philosophy, I would choose the end. I addressed the people of Athens. Stop chasing power and money. Focus on purifying your souls and improving your character. If you execute me, you are the ones who lose, not me. I am a gift from the gods to you gadfly sent to sting you awake. I will not weep for your mercy, for a legal defense should rely on logic and reason, not on playing with emotions.
You say you don't fear death because you don't know it, but human instinct make us fear the unknown. How did you convince your mind that death isn't terrifying? Is that courage or just a cold logic?
You're right about instinct, but ask yourself, what is death? It is one of two things, with no third options. One, either it is nothingness, a deep, dreamless sleep, and who wouldn't want an eternal peaceful rest? Two, or it is a journey of the soul to another place. There I will meet the wise men, the poets, and the heroes of old. I will continue my dialogues with them forever without anyone threatening me with execution. That would be the ultimate happiness. So, when someone fears death, what are they doing? They are assuming that death is evil. Where did they get this information if they haven't tried it? That is what I call arrogant ignorance, claiming to know what you do not. My logic isn't cold. It is the guardian of my soul against the illusions of fear. Fear is a prison, and I chose to be free.
Okay, that's incredibly logical. So, out of the 501 juries, how many voted for your innocence?
After the defense, the 501 citizens cast their votes. The majority found me guilty. 280 voted guilty, while 221 voted innocent. Honestly, I was surprised, expected the gap to be much wider. I didn't think so many would see my innocence. According to Athenian law, the accuser, Meletus, suggests a penalty, and I suggest one for myself. Meletus chose death by hemlock, poison. Now, the expectation was that I would suggest a middle ground, something strong enough for them to accept, like exile or a massive fine. But I refuse to live in prison like a slave, and I am too poor for a fine. As for exile, why would I lose my credibility elsewhere? And I certainly wouldn't stop philosophizing, for the unexamined life is not worth living. So, as is my habit of refutation, I told him, I am a man who never made money because I gave my life to teaching you wisdom. The only just reward I deserve is for the city to provide me with free meals every day for the rest of my life.
Wait, you asked for free meals after they found you guilty?
I was being serious and ironic at the same time. You see, free meals at the Prytaneum were reserved for Olympic heroes and great achievers. I believed I had done more for Athens than any athlete ever could. But this suggestion insulted the jury. In the final vote, the number against me increased. 360 jurors voted for Meletus's penalty, death. Only 141 voted for my proposal.
The world's most philosopher was sentenced to death. One last question, Mr. Socrates. How should we live life?
No one, my dear friend, can tell you exactly how to live. But at least we know this. The life worth living is the one where we constantly seek answers to these questions. You see, the treasure isn't found in a specific answer, but in the pursuit itself, in our journey through life to find them. I treated my life like a painting, one that I framed and painted myself. I became so detached that I even painted my own death with my own hands. I insisted that my life, my painting, remained flawless, and I held to that even in the final days before the sentence was carried out. Take the Crito dialogue, for example. We see how my student Crito finds a way to smuggle me out before the execution. But what happens? I refuse. I argue that an unjust death sentence is no excuse for me to break the laws of Athens and flee. If everyone broke the laws for their own sake, the laws would lose all value. And what about my conversation with Euthyphro, that pious man who wanted to prosecute his own father? That dialogue happened while I was on my way to my own trial. It was as if I intended to seek the true meaning of piety, right as I was heading to be tried for impiety. Then there is the final dialogue that reached you. In it, we witness the final moments of my life just before I drank the poison. In that final conversation, my friend, I spoke of the meaning of death and my belief in the immortality of the soul. Let me tell you, I literally drank the poison and kept right on discussing these topics. And thus, my dear friend, ends my life in which I remained committed to my philosophical duty until the very last moment.
Thank you, Mr. Socrates, and thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and make a like on this video. And see you with another great mind.